The method for making this barbecue sauce is super easy. We're going to brown the onions to give them a little bit more savory flavor. We're going to add the garlic and brown them really quick. We don't want to brown the onions for more than maybe 30 to 60 seconds because they'll burn really fast, and burnt garlic tastes awful. It'll ruin the whole batch. And then we're just going to add everything else in, bring it to a boil, and we're going to throw it in the blender. So let's get started. So we've got our hot pan here. I'm actually going to cook this with butter because I like butter. And we're going to melt this down. My pan, or my cooktop, is at a 5 right now. And I'm actually going to turn it up to 6 because what I want to do is I want to brown these onions pretty quickly. Like, we're not going to take the time to caramelize them like we did with the caramelized onions. Maybe it would be great if you want to. I am actually all for it. And in fact, I think what we might do is add some of those caramelized onions that we made to this to really punch up that flavor. That's a brilliant idea. I think we're going to do that. Yay. Okay, so we've got our melted butter. I want this to warm up a little bit more. This particular cooktop is kind of, it's not that, it's a little weak, right? It takes a little while for it to heat up. So I want to make sure the butter is good and hot. Also, this cooktop has a hot spot right here. So regardless of what I'm doing, I'm always going to watch this spot on my pan on this cooktop. When it comes to your oven at home, like, you're going to find the more you cook that your particular oven, your particular stove has idiosyncrasies, right? So this stove, this cooktop right here has a hot spot. So yours is going to have a hot spot somewhere. The more you cook with it, the more you'll learn it, because there'll just be one spot, regardless of what pan you use, that always seems to like brown faster than the others. When you figure out where that is on your stove, remember it and accommodate it, because you need to accommodate it. It's never going to accommodate you, right? So our butter looks nice and hot. We're going to add our onions. Put them in there. And we're going to cook these until they're soft and just a little brown. We want to be mindful of the butter. Butter has a relatively low smoke point. So that's another reason we don't have this cooktop cranked up. So this would probably be 5 or 6 on your oven at home. If you notice that the butter starts to burn, then pick up your pan, and count to like 10 or 20, kind of keep stirring it. In that time, the pan will cool off just enough to stop the butter from burning. And I don't mean wait till the butter is actually burning and smoking to do that. Like, if you notice it's starting to brown a little bit, that's when you pick it up. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna let this cook for a few minutes, and we'll check it out in a second. We've got some great browning on our onion. It's been probably, I don't know, like 4 or 5 minutes. It smells amazing. You can smell the sugars caramelizing. They smell really savory. They smell kind of sweet. They smell good. So now we're going to add our garlic. This is going to go really quickly because garlic likes to burn in like half a second. Like, garlic is really high in sugar. So we're actually going to turn down our burner just a little bit. And we're only going to cook this garlic for like 30 to 60 seconds. And we're going to keep it moving the whole time. Because if we let this sit in contact with the pan, like, it's going to burn really fast. And like, burnt garlic is surprisingly potent. Like, I don't know what it is about garlic. Maybe it's all the sulfur compounds in it. But when you burn garlic, like, that smell gets into everything. And like, there's no saving a dish unless you really like burnt garlic flavor, which actually I think some people do. Somebody served me a salad once at a restaurant with like really deep, dark garlic. And he was talking about how wonderful and smoky it was. And I thought it just tasted burnt. So we'll see. Oh, it smells amazing. I love the smell of cooking garlic. I'm going to keep cooking it. And we're about done. Basically, what we're doing right now is we're heating the garlic so that it releases its oils into the butter and the fat that's already in this pan. And once those flavorful compounds release into the oil, into the butter, they then coat all the rest of the onions and everything else we're going to put in here. And that works best in like an oil heat as opposed to a wet heat. So if we were to add the garlic with everything else, it would just kind of like simmer. Like, it wouldn't really pull out that flavor. It wouldn't really heighten that gorgeous garlic flavor that we're looking for. So that's why we're kind of doing the garlic with the onions for just a few seconds. Alrighty, we are good. So we're gonna add everything else now. So we've got our vinegar. Sizzle. That's going to deglaze all the little brownie bits on the bottom of the pan. Browning is flavor. Remember, we want to save those brownie bits. We're going to take our lemon juice, and I'm only going to put half of it in. I'm not going to use all of it because I'm not convinced that it's going to need it all with the vinegar. We're going to add our brown sugar. Come on. Come on. Rah. There we go. Also, it's important to note, the reason it wouldn't come out of the spoon is because when you measure brown sugar, you're supposed to pack it. So you don't measure brown sugar by loosely kind of putting it in a cup or a measuring spoon. You literally pack it in there, and that's how brown sugar is measured. Because it's kind of like, it's got like a, I don't know, do you ever use Floam, that kids clay? It's got kind of a Floam type consistency, right? When you pack it in there, it kind of holds its shape. That's how you properly measure brown sugar. So generally, when you try to get it out of whatever you've packed it into, it kind of fights a little bit. We're going to give all that a stir. Da, 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 da. Alrighty, we're going to add our Worcestershire. Worcestershire. Took me a long time to be able to say Worcestershire as a kid. And then I had a British friend recently tell me that I'm still mispronouncing it as an adult. So I don't know how I'm supposed to say it. I'll just call it Worcestershire sauce and hope that nobody makes fun of me to my face. We're going to add our spices. We're going to add our tomato paste. Oop, come on. Kind of mash that up a little bit. We're going to add everything and bring it to a boil. And then this is a really important step. After we bring it to a boil, we need to let it sit and cool for a few minutes, because if you take this really hot mixture and you put it into a blender, what's going to happen is the blender is going to fill with all the steam from the rapidly turning blades, and your blender will explode hot barbecue sauce all over you and potentially put you in the emergency room and absolutely make a huge mess. Like, you know, it's funny, I read these recipes sometimes and they say, you know, cook blah, 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 put it in your blender. And I'm like, either this person has never made this recipe before, or they take a lot for granted in the kitchen and in the recipe development. So once this is all done and come to a boil, then we really need to let it cool. Not like completely cool, it doesn't need to be room temperature, but it needs to be cool enough that we can actually stick our finger in it and hold it there. We've got it all in here. I'm looking at the texture. I'm gonna add the peaches, and there's a little bit of liquid in here from the peaches. It's gonna make it a little bit thinner. That's fine. I have my reserved liquid from the peaches here. And I'm holding on to this because I may want to adjust the sweetness and the texture later after I've already put it in the blender. So we're not even going to need this until it's been in the blender, and we might not need it at all. So that's why this guy's sitting here off to the side. We're going to give it a stir. I'm going to turn up my cooktop because for some reason this cooktop is like only sort of warm up until 7, and then at 8 it goes nuclear. So we're going to cook all these together, and we're going to bring this to a boil, and we'll check it out in a second. We've brought our barbecue sauce, or future barbecue sauce, I guess, to a boil, and it's looking really good. I'm actually going to break up these peaches a little bit, just so they heat through faster, and so they're not such a task for the blender. Small bits are far easier to blend in a blender than big bits, and canned peaches are really soft, so they're really easy to break up. So we're just going to do the work ahead of time. Now, while we were waiting for this to boil, I snuck off and I grabbed some of the caramelized onions that we made in the last lesson. And these are really tasty. I've got probably a tablespoon and a half. Oh my God. They're so good. We're going to mix those in till they warm through. Give it all a good mix. My burner's still at a 6, and I'm tired of fighting with it, so I'm just going to leave it there and wait for it instead of trying to make it accommodate me. There we go. This is actually at a good temperature, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take it off the heat. We're going to let it cool for probably 10 or 15 minutes, just till it's cool enough where I can like put my finger in there and hold it without any discomfort, and then I'm going to go put it in the blender.